So, you've spent all week planning tonight's session. The game's just started and you're feeling confident. You've got the upcoming monster stats ready, you know where they're planning to go, and you know their objective. Things are progressing smoothly, but wait, they're rolling really bad. That's fine, you're a good DM. You improvise a new path for them that'll give them a new set of options. Those dice are really not playing nice though. If they keep failing checks and saves like this, you'll have no choice but to throw some consequences at them. Otherwise, you'll lose all the drama that you've built up. Okay, fine. You assess the position they've ended up in and describe a cool, threatening monster. You're an improv master. You throw out awesome, visceral descriptions, you allude to how fearsome the monster is, and then you look at the monster stats you have prepared. You can't use these, they'll still be required when the party gets back on track with the adventure. You pick up the monster manual, but you're describing a monster straight from your imagination. There's no stats for this. You have no choice but to improv a new monster, but your party is waiting. They're going to begin losing the illusion that the DM is ready for anything. What the hell do you do now? Hi everyone, Skull here. No matter how prepared you are as a DM, your party will always find ways to surprise you. You can have everything planned out, but while it's your single brain versus 4 or 5 others, they're going to think of plans or strategies that you just didn't account for. It's inevitable. When this happens, you might need to pull a combat encounter out of thin air, and while there are many pre-existing monsters in 5th edition D&D, they won't always be appropriate, or you just can't hold all of those stat blocks in your head and recall an appropriate monster from memory. When this happens, you'll need to be able to create a new, relevant monster in just a few minutes. This can be quite daunting, but there are a few things that we can do as DMs to make this process significantly easier. Your first step could be to take similar, existing monsters and use that as a baseline for your new monster. D&D is, after all, a vocal game for the most part. The mechanics will sometimes come with visual descriptions, but more often the rules will mostly tell you what dice to roll or what numbers to change. This allows you to describe these mechanics in any way that you find fitting. If you've described the monster as being a goblin cursed by a Lolth to have warped spider-like features such as pincers, frail hooked limbs, and several deformed eyes, instead of trying to instantly come up with the appropriate thematic abilities and actions, you could take the stat block for the Ettercap and simply describe the attacks and actions in a way that makes sense for your poor cursed goblin. Instead of an Ettercap snapping pincers piercing the fighter's skin, the goblin's drooling mouth latches onto the fighter's arm, holding them in place as the warped pincers pierce the skin and pump a burning poison into the wound. Instead of the Ettercap spraying a wide net of webbing, the goblin gags, eyes bulging as they vomit up an arcing spray of spiderwebs that pour onto the ranger, trapping them against the cave wall. Instead of the Ettercap using its spider-like limbs to scuttle across the webbing, the goblin drags itself forward on its additional, malformed limbs while its goblinoid legs get stuck and pulled free repeatedly. In many situations, this might be enough to bypass the need to create anything further, but if you need something a little extra, this could work to be your groundwork for an urgent new monster. Instead of taking the full monster stat block and using it as it is, you might prefer to take the baseline stats and abilities of an existing monster and build upon them. In the case of our cursed spider goblin, you might want 2 variations of them, a ranged and a melee version. To begin with, you take the baseline stats of the Ettercap. Its hit points, its armor class, speed, stat scores, and sensors all remain the same. You also keep the abilities, as the spider theme suits your Lolth cursed goblin. Now that you have the groundwork in place, you can build off the back of it to differentiate the 2 variants. The melee version takes the multi-attack, the bite, and the claw attacks of the Ettercap, but loses the webbing ability. Instead, this is given to the ranged version, along with an acid spit attack. For speed and bounce, you take the hit bonus and the damage of the claw attack and apply them to the acid spit attack. Using your knowledge as a DM, you pick a suitable range, let's say 25 feet, and change the damage type to acid. And as easy as that, you have 2 distinct homebrew creations that no one would have guessed came from an Ettercap. Now, you might be thinking that's all well and good, but didn't we agree that it's almost impossible to remember all of these monster stat blocks in my head? And if I remembered the Ettercap, why wouldn't I simply use that instead of improvising a weird goblin spider? And that's a very valid criticism of this method. However, luckily, we don't actually need to remember these creatures off the top of our heads. Thanks to websites such as D&D Beyond, we can almost instantly filter every official monster in 5th edition D&D to find something appropriate without even knowing it exists. By selecting an appropriate challenge rating, size, and biome, we can create a list of possible monsters to adapt. You can even take this filtering further to specific type of creature, whether it has any specific sensors or movement types, and much more. Tools such as D&D Beyond really show their value in moments such as this, although they do require a rather significant investment to get the most out of them. Okay, so now you have a quick and simple method for running an unexpected monster in a structured combat. But what if your party have started a fight with an NPC or a creature that wasn't really intended for combat, or something that doesn't quite justify a full stat block? Sometimes all you need to run a creature in combat are three things: its hit points, its armor class, and its to hit bonus. Using your intuition as a DM, you can pull these numbers from the expectation you have of the situation. If your party has unexpectedly attacked a group of civilians, depending on the character's level, this should be a relatively easy fight for them. You can determine that this isn't going to be a difficult encounter for your players, so assigning a hit points and an armor class that means the commoners will drop in 1 or 2 hits makes sense. They aren't trained combatants, so giving them a low to hit bonus will mean it's an unexpected surprise if one of them does land a hit, and damage can be determined by the weapon they're wielding. Given the scenario, this all makes sense to the story and would keep immersion. If your party has attacked an NPC that is less defenseless though, they might be able to put up a fight. In this situation, you should again pick a hit points and an armor class based on expectation. How long should this person last in a fight against your party? Are they wearing armor? Are they armed? Have they been trained in combat? If they have, they should be able to land a few hits. Once you've determined these 3 stats, you can make further assumptions about the creature you're running. If they have a +5 or higher to hit, chances are they're well trained and could pose a threat to the party, so perhaps they should gain the multi-attack action. You could also give them a few low-level class features such as Action Surge or Rage. The intent here is to know just enough about the NPC or creature to run a quick encounter without putting significant effort into designing a creature stat block, for something that is intended to die or be defeated relatively quickly. The last thing I'd like to talk about isn't about how to design creatures in an instant, but the thought process behind it. It can be tempting to want every combat encounter to be challenging and memorable, but if you're in a position where you're having to design a new creature in the moment, don't try and make it dangerous. If you didn't know it was coming, it isn't significant enough to kill one of your player characters. Character deaths can happen, and they can be either very dramatic or extremely disappointing. If your character dies to a monster not even you knew was coming, chances are it'll be a disappointing death. Balancing monsters can be difficult even with planning and dedicated design, so if you're trying to come up with a monster on the spot, it's better to aim too low than too high. Try to treat these unexpected combat encounters as short exercises in stalling and draining player resources, not as a chance to throw another dangerous battle against your players. I hope this video has given you something to think about and helped you feel more confident next time you have to improvise a creature. As always, if you find this video helpful, you are legally required to like and subscribe. I have a community Discord that you can join in the description and a website full of free homebrew content at www.venionreforged.co.uk. But that is it. I will see you in the next video and I hope you have a great day.